We really shouldn't be surprised that the British government is spouting slogans which were first invented for Australia. Why? Because of Tony Abbott's role in advising the British government. Tony Abbott is on the Board of Trade, and he's a former Australian Prime Minister. He's a person who's rather sceptical of climate change. I think he compared the people who campaign against climate change, or the climate activists, he compared them to primitive people once killed goats to appease the volcano gods. He's a divisive individual, but we shouldn't be surprised that the Stop the Boats slogan is being thrashed out so vigorously, and indeed that Kemi Badenoch has got her trade deal with the Pacific Group because of the influence of this man, Tony Abbott. I don't know whether his influence is good or bad. We salute the trade deal, but the small boats, the Stop the Boats campaign, I don't think that chimes with what the majority of people in Britain really want. Yes, there's a vocal minority. And yes, we've had years and years of anti-migration rhetoric, but fanning the flames of xenophobia, and this has now been ratcheted up with the anti-Pakistani grooming lines of Suella Braverman. But it's Stop the Boats which is the phrase which seems to dominate. And Enver Solomon, the fellow who runs the Refugee Council, has called the latest illegal immigration bill draconian legislation. It does not reflect who we are in 2023. It's the language of UKIP rekindled and bashed out on the dispatch box by the Conservative Party. Immigration is out of control. Invasion is now used by Suella Braverman as a perfectly reasonable slogan in itself to put into the pages of Hansard. But the reality is that the asylum problem is not really a problem anymore. There isn't a great increase in numbers. It's a failure, if anything, of bureaucracy. It's a failure of the Home Office to deal with the backlog of applications. 1% of those people who applied were processed in 2022. 161,000 cases are on hold, and polls suggest recently that the majority of people actually support migration. We need foreign workers to fill the many, many job vacancies. YouGov polls suggest that while there's 30% of voters in the red wall section of the Conservative vote who favour the government's immigration approach, the blue wall down in the south is actually in favour of migration and is turning against the rhetoric. And the Conservative Party is likely to lose votes rather than gain votes. It will lose votes in its bedrock seats in its heartland. That's the problem. People are likely to desert the party or simply not vote. And Rishi Sunak and the whips are clearly betting that when it comes to the crunch, that bedrock, that heartland, will come out in support of the party, whether they disapprove of what it's doing or not. I think this is a gamble with the morality of our nation, and I don't think that's a good way to go.